Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. In today's video, we're going to learn how to play carry. And for anybody that's new or just starting out, low MMR, etc., we're just going to go over all of the basics. So to start, carry is also referred to as the one position or the safe laner because they start in the safe lane here, and they are the one position because they have the most farm priority. They get the most farm. If anyone says making space, usually they should be making space for the carry so that they can get farm. And the reason that you start off in the safe lane, which is bottom on the Radiant or top on the Dire, is because of the way that the lanes are structured. It's a longer lane, the creeps meet closer to your tower, and so it's easier for you to get farm. It's a little bit safer because by the nature of the heroes that you usually pick as carry, they're weak early on and they scale better into the late game with items and levels and all of those things, but early they really need to be babysat and they're not very threatening. So that's kind of how it works. You can obviously learn a little bit more specifically about all of the roles here on the Learn tab, but we're going to go to Heroes now. So as a carry, you should basically be picking one of these heroes. These are pretty much all of the carry heroes. There's a little bit of a difference here, some odd heroes that can be played carry, but we're just going to focus on these for now. And I've divided them into 3 tiers, mainly because it's pretty obvious. As carry, as the hero or the role that needs to get the most farm, you're going to be getting a lot of last hits. You're going to focus on the creeps. You're going to focus on getting levels and all of these things. But then eventually you have to use that to win the game. You have to use that to take team fights, kill heroes, kill towers, all of those things. And different heroes do that differently based on their abilities and all those things, but we can kind of divide the heroes up into a few sections. So that's kind of what I've done here, so that you can get a better, more straightforward understanding of how to play the role. So we have 3 kind of divisions here. We have farming carries, aggressive carries, and then ones that are in the middle. And basically, this is just something I made up on the spot. It's kind of a rough estimation. Some heroes could be shifted around a little bit, but basically why I divide them this way is because all of these farming carries up here, they either have some kind of steroid for farming or they basically always buy Battle Fury. Pretty much PA is the only one that I put here that doesn't always buy Battle Fury every patch, but even now in a bad Battle Fury patch, she still basically only buys that. And regardless, even though that's kind of the one exception, she still is a hero that functions in a similar way. And all of these heroes, basically how they function is early in the game, they might lane well, they might lane poorly, whatever it is, they're going to transition into the mid game, into the early game to mid game. They're going to transition just to farming. Now, they can participate every once in a while. Luna can use her ult to get a kill, maybe. Sven can also use his ult to take a tower or get a kill, these kinds of things. But really, they want to prioritize getting as much farm as possible because what these heroes do is they farm for 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is. They have a item timing of 3 items, 2 items, whatever it is. And once they hit that timing, they are extremely strong compared to what they were before. And usually they can also farm quicker than any other heroes in the game. They're just really, really fast at farming. So if you can get that farm, if you can make, or if you can get that space that your team makes for you, then you can pop out of the jungle or you can pop out of farming and join your team at 25 minutes, whatever it is, and just be a complete beast that takes over the game, kills everybody, kills towers. You're really, really threatening. So that's really how these heroes function. But the key part is you want to transition into the mid game to farm, and then at a certain point when you hit their timing, when you hit their item timing, you do want to transition a little bit away from farming and more into fighting. Now, you're still going to keep your farm up. You need to do that for sure, but it's one of these things where it's kind of a transition from farm to fight at a certain point in the game when they reach some kind of timing where they're really, really strong. So that's obviously a little bit more simplified than, once you get to higher levels, it becomes more complicated, but that's how you can think about this. We're going to skip the middle of the road. We're going to go here to aggressive. These heroes are all really aggressive because what they do is instead of like going to jungle or hitting the triangle in the ancient camp or hitting a stack that their team has prepared for them after the laning stage, these heroes generally either stay in their lane or they get really aggressive on the enemy tower or something like that. They want to kill heroes. They want to participate. They want to, be all in your face. They lane pretty strong. They're kind of an exception to the rule of a carry doesn't lane well. They lane usually pretty well, and that laning needs to be, they need to lane well because they need to dominate, because they need to get a few kills. They need to kind of snowball the game and take it over from start to finish. They don't really want to, retreat to the jungle. They don't want to retreat to just farming. They don't want to just be passive on the map. They want to be really aggressive. So heroes like Lycan, runs at towers once he gets 6, can just take towers, can kill people really effectively, running around the map. Weaver, in a similar way, is just super fast, can go all around, very evasive, but does high damage. Ursa, once Ursa gets a few levels, it's really, really hard to man-fight this hero early on. It's probably one of the strongest carries early in the game. Lifestealer, hits you down, keeps hitting you with the slows, and you just can't get away. So all of these heroes have some reason that they're super aggressive. Riki, maybe not the best early on, but once you hit that defusal timing with this hero, you can run around the map killing everybody. So all of these heroes are pretty aggressive and don't like to, just sit back and farm. Now, these middle-of-the-road heroes, there's always some kind of in-between exception. They might not be the best laners. Slark is not the greatest laner, but he can be good against some heroes. But same thing with Morphling. Morphling very, very weak early on, but better, later can get aggressive once he gets some levels. But all of these heroes, they have their times when they can be aggressive. But the reason that they're not in aggressive tier is because that's not the only way that they win. And the reason that they're not in the farming tier is because they don't really have a lot of innate built-in farming mechanics. I mean, Drow does have split shot, Jug can spin, Slark has his Q, Troll has a few spells, Wraith King has skeletons and things like this, but they're just not the farmers that these carries are, and they don't really love to compete with farm if it's just a farming game. Now, there are exceptions to that, where PL and Spectre are two heroes that if they get their farm, if they're allowed to get 2 or 3 items, they're kind of like these heroes in that they'll just dominate the game. But they don't get those items nearly as fast. It's just a matter of, are they allowed to get that space? Can they participate? Can they, bully the game? Because PL can get pretty aggressive once he has just his defusal. He can kind of, bully people out one-on-one. Spectre can get pretty tanky, can use the ult off cooldown, and will get really, really, aggressive and can kill people, but doesn't farm all that quickly. Doesn't have any kind of innate steroid for farming, and also doesn't, buy Battle Fury. So that's all of these heroes. There's something weird and funky. It's in the middle. Jug can get really aggressive with his spin, really aggressive with his ult, but also can farm, can buy Battle Fury, those kinds of things. Faceless Void, pretty good late game hero, has Chrono. Not the best farmer, but can buy, attack speed to farm pretty quickly, but also can get kind of aggressive. So they're all in the middle, and that's why it's a little bit fuzzy. I sort of just made up this, list and divided it in this way, but that's to kind of demonstrate how carries play. Carries either want to really, really farm, focus on your farming, and there's these heroes, carries that want to get involved early, press their advantage, stay in their lane, be aggressive, get kills, and then ones that can kind of do either, just depending on the matchup, depending on how they play. So that's kind of the heroes that play carry and how to think about them conceptually. So now I've jumped into a game here by myself, custom lobby with no bots or players or anything, and I'm just going to show you how to play the lane in the most basic way as a carry. So we're starting out as Slark in the safe lane on the Radiant side, and I have normal starting items. As we see here, the creeps are meeting right outside our tower, and here's our tower range. And basically, this is why it's the safe lane, because the enemy is going to have a hard time chasing me under the tower, especially early on. And, I can chase them all the way back to their tower up here. And as we see, the creeps just meet here naturally, close to my tower, so it's pretty easy for me to get last hits. Now, what I would say is, as a carry player, if you're going to play carry, one of the things that you should be able to do is you should be able to get last hits while also keeping your creeps right here. So you should be able to get into a custom lobby and keep your creeps right here forever. Basically, just never allow them to go anywhere else than meeting right here in front of your tower. So that's a skill that you need to learn, because obviously you want to get last hits, you want to get denies if you can, but really the number one rule of carry in the laning stage is creep equilibrium, and that basically just means where are the creeps currently meeting. So yes, get last hits, denies, all those things, be aggressive if you can, but you always want to try to keep the wave here if possible. So the first step in knowing how to do that is being able to do that when no one else is contesting you. And essentially the key to this is making sure that your range creep dies, because if you didn't know this, your range creep actually does more damage to creeps than the melee creep. So we see here these creeps are still alive. The range creeps are usually the last ones to die. And I'm pretty much making sure every time that the range creep for the enemy dies after mine does. And that's pretty much key. Or at the very least, your range creep should be in deny range. And that's how you can basically keep the wave here forever. But let's see if I can't, over time here, push the wave a little bit. And that will happen one way or another. Whether the tower comes in here to under here, like the enemy wave comes under here and stops your creeps from moving up, and that way the tower keeps attacking the enemy creeps and pushes it faster, or whether that's because whether you made a mistake or you needed to, or you did it for some reason, you decided to kill the enemy range creep or kill the creeps or right click the creeps and push the wave. Now, this is something that you don't necessarily want to do, but sometimes it's just going to happen. It's just going to get pushed. That's just the nature of Dota. When you have multiple people in the lane, you're harassing, they're harassing, you're trying to get denies, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes the lane will just push and it'll be here, or it'll even be up further. Once that happens, then it's either your responsibility or the 5 support's responsibility to pull the small camp or pull the big camp here into your wave to try to get the creep equilibrium back here. Now that's kind of more advanced mechanics. There's all different kinds of things that you can do to try to get the lane equilibrium back to a normal spot. But just know the first step is to be able to go into a custom lobby and keep the lane equilibrium here forever. And if you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to do all of the better things, the more advanced parts of creep equilibrium. And then once it does push, if there's kind of even, which it's not really even now, the key to bringing it back is to deny, deny, deny. So as soon as, right now it's pushing really, really hard because we kind of right-clicked, attacked a whole wave. But as we see, as soon as this creep gets low, I'm instantly attacking it. And eventually, hopefully, that will bring it back. Now, if it's pushing so hard as it is now, where we have almost a full wave and another wave is coming, it's not really, I'm not going to do much. At this point, I have to pull. I have to pull a side camp in order to get the lane equilibrium right. Sometimes that's just what you have to do. And if that's the case, it's actually better to push the lane in like this. Basically just like full on, just say, screw it, I'm getting the last hits, I'm pushing, and it'll go under the enemy tower, and then maybe it will pull back. So here, now the enemy tower is going to attack, and eventually the lane equilibrium will kind of even out and come back towards me at least a little bit. But that's basic lane equilibrium. There's all different kinds of scenarios, all different kinds of things that'll happen. You'll be right-clicking the enemy. You'll be, they'll be right-clicking you, all of that kind of stuff. The other thing is creep aggro, which I didn't really talk about, but it's similar to creep equilibrium in that if you ever right-click an enemy hero near the creeps, the enemy creeps will chase you. So what you can do, I can't demonstrate it here because there's no enemy hero, but I can right-click the hero, and then these creeps will chase me, and they will chase me back to the ranged hero, to the ranged creep, and they will start killing the ranged creep. So that is another technique for lane equilibrium. But basically, get your last hits, get your denies, be aggressive when you can, but learn lane equilibrium and learn how to do creep aggro to get easier last hits and to adjust lane equilibrium. So that's pretty much the laning stage with all carries. Pretty much all carries do some form of this kind of lane equilibrium thing, and that's how laning works. Now, once we hit level 6, and we're Slark, we're level 6, it's around level 6 for most carries. It's around the 5, 6, 7 minute mark, whenever it is, that you're hitting level 6 or you're getting enough points in like Q for Dark Pact for Slark or whatever ability it is, Spin for Jug, something like that. Then it's time to do one of two things. You usually push the lane out, and then you go farm this camp. Now, I don't have the full items that I usually would have, so this isn't going to be nearly as fast as if I had treads and stuff like that. But basically, you push the lane out, then you farm that camp, then you farm this camp, and then you go back and you push the lane out. And you sort of do this like rotation between these 3 camps and, the lane and these 2 camps, and you get a ton of farm, and hopefully you're able to do that. Now, sometimes, let's say you're a hero like Medusa, you're a hero like Luna, you're some other hero that, you can farm quickly, but you kind of get bullied out of lane. People are going to chase you down. You're really slow. You're not escapable like AM. You can't jump away or dispel things like Slark, all that kind of stuff. Well, then what you can do, or maybe you're a Sven and you can farm really quickly, but, you just don't feel like you're just one of those farming heroes I mentioned that doesn't really want to stay in the safe lane all that much longer than, 8 minutes or whatever it is, the laning stage. Well, then basically what you can do is you can just make your way back through here, through all the jungle, and then go to the triangle. And the triangle here, we call it the triangle because there's 3 camps, and it contains an ancient camp. Ancient camps give more XP and gold than any other. We'll do this. Oops.
Don't let your middle tower fall.
Than any other camp in the game. So they give a ton of XP and gold. You can farm them every minute and it'll get you really farmed. And then you can also try to push this lane out because you're pretty close to this lane. Now, you don't necessarily always want to do this around 8 minutes, but if you feel pressured in your lane, if you feel like you're going to die or you already did die, sometimes on those farming heroes, it's good to work your way back to the triangle. And if you have a good team, you know, hopefully they'll stack for you. If not, you can always farm this out and push that. And basically, that honestly is sometimes how the laning stage is determined. When the laning stage ends is kind of when the carry decides that it's time to go to the triangle, to leave the lane, and then maybe, you know, take the lane, the off lane from the off lane hero, and then the off lane can rotate to the safe lane or gank or pressure the tower, whatever it is. And that's kind of how the laning stage ends. Then from here, it's all hero dependent. Can you push this out? Can you pressure the tower? Do you want to use your, you know, cooldown, your Chronosphere, your Jug ult, whatever it is, off cooldown, your Spectre ult? Do you want to just keep farming like a Medusa, pressure a tower with a Medusa because you're really strong? Has your team taken this tower? Has your team taken this tower? You know, what is it? But even if you're like a Slark, even if you're a Lifestealer, even if you're something that wants to do this like 3 rotation, right? Eventually what'll happen is the enemy will come, boot you out of lane or try to contest you or something, and then usually where you go on the map is to your off lane. And that's because once this tower dies, you can have this entire portion of the map to farm. And it's a lot safer to farm this than it is to try to farm this. And obviously going up here is probably the most dangerous part of the map. So usually after, you know, the mid game or early game, around the mid game time, most carries will transition to this triangle and farming this. This is a general rule. It's not the same for every carry. It always depends on the situation and stuff. But once this tower falls or before this falls, even, you want to be farming in this area of the map. And that's pretty much how carry works. Then from there, things get really complicated. You know, you're going to take this tower. Hopefully you take this tower. And then the game really kind of changes up. It's very dynamic from there. But that's basically how to think of carry, how to play carry from the early game laning stage and then farming into the later game. You kind of want to work your way through all of the camps, work your way, push out this lane as much as possible, and farm as much of the jungle here as possible. And then, you know, you'll get your timings, you'll play for your specific timings on your hero, you'll play for your ultimate, whatever it is, and that's pretty much how you play carry in a game. So I'm jumping into a replay here, and the reason for that is I want to show you guys some specific examples of how to play carry in the late game. So this is a game that I played where we came back from behind to win, and the reason for that is largely, you know, target prioritization, good team fighting, other things like that. But that's mainly what I want to show you in this game. In this replay is how to team fight, how to target prioritize based on, you know, the matchups and all of those things. Because a lot of times the farming and stuff, I can give you general rules up to the mid game, but after that things change so drastically between games and heroes and all this stuff. It's hard to give you general rules other than something like this. So this is a team fight that we're about to take here. And I just want to show you kind of my target prioritization. Now, I'm hitting the Bristleback, obviously, because he's the one on me. He's slowing me, and I don't want to pop Rage. So that's another thing, is you don't want to use your abilities if you don't have to. You kind of want to save them. Now, I immediately go on the SF here, and the reason for that is he is the one doing the most damage in the fight, and he has a Satanic, and hitting him while I have Scotty makes it so that he can't lifesteal nearly as much. So I almost have to hit him. Then, after he dies, you see I'm hitting the Bristleback, but I immediately go for the supports because I know I can kill them very quickly. We also have a ward up on the high ground, so they can't go invis or anything like that. And so I immediately hit them because I know if I don't kill them, they're going to do a ton of damage in fights. Now, I basically go for the Bristleback because I'm thinking he's super low, I can probably kill him, and the problem with going for Bloodseeker is Bloodseeker's high movement speed, even with my slow, he just runs away from me, and that's something that I learned in the rest of the game. Now, because the SF bought back, and because I think the Witch Doctor bought back as well, I'm pretty much infesting the Doom to try to get away. But unfortunately, the Doom just kind of goes in even though I want him to back. But again, I see the SF, and I immediately start hitting the SF because I know that the only way that SF won't just kill everyone in the fight is if I hit him. So I pretty much just have to all in on him, otherwise he's going to kill all of us. And that's just pretty much how it's going to work. Unfortunately, I do die there because of the insane damage from Witch Doctor's Maledict, but I probably could have maybe saved myself. It's really hard to say, but we do eventually come back and win this game, even despite the fact that it looks so poor now. But I think that's a really good example of target prioritization in a fight, and the only reason we ended up like losing at the end is because of all those buybacks, and I kind of wanted Doom to get back there, but he just went back in even after everyone was alive. So, in any case, that's kind of what you need to focus on when you're playing carry, is you need to focus on target prioritization. Who do you need to go for in the fight? What does your hero do? Does it really go for the supports? A lot of times going for the supports is the best thing to do, but sometimes, like I'm telling you here, is that because my Scotty counters his Satanic, I almost have to focus the SF in some ways, because if he's not doomed, and even if he is, his right click is just going to kill everybody, and he's going to Satanic like out of any damage that he's going to take and just carry the game, because the SF was really almost the hard carry in this game. So I kind of had to focus him down or the supports. And then sometimes I would hit Bristleback or Bloodseeker, you know, at the end or whatever. But that's basically what you need to do, is you need to ask yourself, who do I hit? Why do I hit them? Why do I want to go on them in fights? Those kinds of things. And I don't even make the correct decision every time, because it's split-second decisions, but you should have a general idea of what you're doing in the fight before you do it, so that you can try to at least make the right decision. If you don't, you can learn from it later when you watch the replay and those kinds of things. So that's target prioritization in the fights as carry. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is from the same game, and it's kind of obvious here, but I'm using a very obvious example because the same thing applies regardless of, you know, what's happening in the game. And this is just hit towers. As carry, focus the buildings. Ignore all of the heroes when you are going high ground. If you have Aegis, whatever it is, whatever else is happening in the game, if you win a team fight like we just did, push the base, hit buildings, ignore creeps, ignore heroes. So we see, you know, they have Bloodseeker bottom going into our base. I just have to ignore that. You know, the Veno is up. I know the Veno's up. He's using spells on us. I don't care. The Bristleback is up. I still don't care that the Bristleback is TPing in. I'm just hitting towers, and then I'm getting out. And although this was kind of an obvious, easy scenario where the enemy is dead, we need to push, it's late game, if I don't get some kind of trade here, it's going to be really bad. But the same thing applies regardless of the situation. If you have Aegis, hit the towers. If you have small numbers advantage, hit the towers. Focus on buildings. It's probably the most important thing. Do not dive. Do not, you know, try to kill more than you need to. Just focus on hitting buildings. Even if your whole team is diving the enemy tier 3s or going into the enemy fountain or whatever it is, just hit buildings, because that will secure you games. Don't mess around. Don't throw games. Don't try to be cheeky and think you're going to win anyway without hitting buildings, because the whole reason that you fight is to hit buildings and take objectives, especially racks. So as a carry, just do that. Do that in all your games. Focus on objectives. Now I'm showing you a replay of ILTW playing Anti-Mage, and this is to show you basically how to split push on carry, because Anti-Mage is that quintessential carry that pretty much only split pushes. Now, it's weird because obviously they have a techies in the game, so he has to be a little bit more careful than he otherwise would be. But you see how the enemy's mid, the enemy's killing his team. They're probably going Roche, but he's generally playing safe. Even though he sees the Void Spirit, he doesn't really want to get caught out by a potential Pango roll and a PA crit. He just wants to be a little bit safer. Now that he knows they're over there roshing and they're probably not ganking him, he's getting a little bit more aggressive. But I just want to show you kind of the general idea of what he's doing here and how he's farming, and how aggressive he's being in farming. And basically what you want to be doing, either while you're playing the game, obviously you want to do this, but if you're going to try to learn how to split push or learn farming patterns, the key is not just to look at the hero, not to just look at Anti-Mage and where he's farming or what camps he's hitting, but really it's to look at the minimap and see what heroes are showing. What heroes can he see on the map? So he sees Void mid, he sees the techies bottom, and he doesn't really want to show himself other than very briefly on the lane, because he doesn't want to get ganked, he doesn't want to get killed. So we see Now that he sees pretty much no one on the map, he's going to farm backwards. He's going to retreat a little bit. He sees Void for a split second with his illusion, and he's just kind of going to retreat because he feels like, okay, the last time they saw me was bottom here. I haven't seen them on the map for quite a while. Yes, they could be in the triangle. They could be in the top jungle, but they also could be hunting me, and we see the Void Spirit kind of running after him a little bit, chasing him into the triangle here. And I think that's the perfect example of split pushing, the perfect example of how to just watch the minimap, because this entire sequence, basically what he's doing is he's just watching the minimap and looking at the fight and looking at what his team and the enemy team, looking at what they're doing. And you see he immediately is watching everything, but he's just blinking and walking bottom because he knows they have Aegis. I don't want to fight them. It's kind of a bad matchup for him against PA, and he doesn't have MKB yet. So basically, he's just focusing on split pushing, but he's really just honestly paying attention mostly to the map, mostly to who is who's on the map, who's showing, and who can potentially even stop him from split pushing or kill him. And that's the biggest thing for split pushing, whether it's AM or any other hero. So I just kind of wanted to show you that. And you see how he pretty much knows that you can't fight right now, and they have Aegis. So even though they're taking racks, he's still not fighting them. He's still pretty much just trying to cut waves and split push as much as possible. So that's pretty much how to play AM, I think, or how to play basically any split pushing hero. I will say he'd probably be a little bit more aggressive in hitting towers and hitting that bottom tier 3 if there wasn't a techies in the game. So keep that in mind. You want to push your limits, push yourself as far as you can go without feeding and dying, and that's the key to split pushing. So that's one of the biggest things to playing carry later in the game, especially one of these carries that can split push. So that is my carry guide. I hope that helps. That covers most of the basics of playing carry here. Basically the basics of how carries work, how to think about them, how to lane with them, the most important things, and then how to transition into that jungling mid-game farming scenario and where you should be on the map. So that's my carry guide. I hope you guys like it. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things. As always, join the Discord if you haven't already. I'm doing replay review requests there. You can also ask me here on YouTube, and I'm going to be doing Friday streams where I do all of those replay reviews on Twitch. So keep in touch with that. Follow that on Twitch there. As always, I have coaching now, so the Patreon is below. If you want to, just support me, you can go to Patreon as well and support me there. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.